On the night of August 8, 2013, a 26-year-old father named Brandon Lawson got into an argument with his girlfriend, climbed into his silver Ford F-150, and drove out of San Angelo, Texas, heading north on Highway 277. He never made it where he was going. Somewhere along that desolate stretch of Texas highway, nothing but scrubland and darkness for miles, his truck ran out of gas. He pulled over, and then he called 911. The call is one of the most chilling pieces of audio in any missing persons case. Brandon sounds panicked, out of breath, terrified. "I'm in the middle of a field," he tells the dispatcher. "There's one car here. A guy's chasing me through the woods. Please hurry." In the background, another voice can be heard. Someone is there with him. When a sheriff's deputy arrived at his truck shortly after 1 in the morning, Brandon Lawson was gone. His truck was there. His keys were not. And after 1:19 a.m., every call to his phone went straight to voicemail. He was never heard from again. Brandon Mason Lawson was born in 1987 and grew up in the small towns of Central Texas. By 2013, he was living in San Angelo with his longtime girlfriend Ladessa Lofton and their children. He worked as a roughneck in the oil fields, hard, physical labor that defined life for many young men in West Texas. Brandon was known as a devoted father. Friends described him as outgoing, loyal, and protective of his family. But he also struggled. Brandon had a history with substance abuse, particularly methamphetamine. By the summer of 2013, he had been clean for about 6 months, a stretch his family was proud of. But something changed that August night. His brother Kyle later told investigators that Brandon had relapsed and taken methamphetamine shortly before his disappearance. Whether that played a role in what happened next has been debated ever since. On the evening of August 8th, Brandon arrived home to find Ladessa upset. They argued. Ladessa believed Brandon had been using again. Around 11:30 p.m., Brandon called his father in Crowley, Texas, 3 hours east, and told him he was driving there. At 11:54 p.m., he left. It was a decision that would cost him everything. Brandon headed north on Highway 277, a lonely 2-lane road cutting through Coke County. Flat, dry ranch land with almost no cell service and even fewer people. Around 12:30 a.m., he called his brother Kyle with bad news. His truck had run out of gas, but something else was wrong. Brandon told Kyle that 3 people were chasing him. "3 guys are chasing me out of town," he said. Kyle asked if he was hallucinating. Brandon said no. Kyle and his wife grabbed a gas can and headed toward Brandon's location. They kept calling each other, but Brandon wouldn't hold a conversation. He'd say a few sentences, then hang up. His voice was frantic. At 12:50 a.m., Brandon called 911. The call was routed to a nursing home in nearby Robert Lee, Texas, before reaching a dispatcher. What he said has been analyzed thousands of times since. "I'm in the middle of a field. My truck ran out of gas. There's one car here. A guy's chasing me through the woods. Please hurry." The dispatcher asked him to repeat. Brandon said something about running into someone. Then a second voice, not Brandon's, can be heard in the background. The call lasted about a minute. Then silence. At 12:56 a.m., a passing truck driver independently called 911 to report a silver pickup parked dangerously on the shoulder of Highway 277 with its lights on. A Coke County Sheriff's deputy was dispatched. The deputy arrived at Brandon's truck shortly after 1:00 a.m. The vehicle was locked. Brandon was nowhere in sight. The deputy searched the immediate area along the road but found nothing. Kyle arrived around 1:10 a.m. He was on the phone with Brandon at the time. Brandon told him, "I can see you." But Kyle couldn't see Brandon anywhere. Brandon sounded out of breath and said he was bleeding. After 1:19 a.m., all calls to Brandon's phone went directly to voicemail. His phone either died, was turned off, or was destroyed. The phone was never recovered. Kyle waited at the truck, but Brandon never appeared. When morning came, Kyle reported his brother missing, but the initial response was slow. Brandon was a grown man who'd had an argument with his girlfriend. Authorities assumed he'd come back on his own. A formal missing persons case wasn't opened for several days. By then, whatever trail might have existed had gone cold. The evidence in Brandon Lawson's case is frustratingly limited. His truck was found locked on the shoulder of Highway 277, about 3 miles south of Bronte, Texas. The gas tank was empty. His wallet and phone were not in the vehicle. The 911 call is the single most important piece of evidence, and also the most controversial. The audio quality is poor, and multiple interpretations exist for nearly every sentence Brandon speaks. Some hear him say, "A guy's chasing me through the woods." Others hear, "A guy's got on me through the woods." The background voice has been interpreted as, "You there," or "Watch out," or something else entirely. An audio specialist later enhanced the call and confirmed at least one additional voice in the background. Someone was there. Whether that person was a threat, a bystander, or a figment of a drug-induced episode remains unknown. The terrain around the truck offered few clues. The area is flat scrubland, mesquite, cactus, dry creek beds. Search teams used dogs, helicopters, and volunteers to comb the area in the weeks that followed. But the vast, open landscape and August heat made tracking impossible. No clothing, no blood trail, no footprints. Brandon Lawson had simply vanished into the Texas night. The investigation into Brandon's disappearance was handled by the Coke County Sheriff's Office and later assisted by the Texas Rangers. From the beginning, law enforcement faced a difficult question. Was this a crime, an accident, or something self-inflicted? Brandon's known methamphetamine use cast a shadow over the case. If he was high, the paranoid statements about being chased could have been hallucinations. Meth psychosis can cause exactly the kind of frantic, disjointed behavior heard in the 911 call. He could have run into the brush in a paranoid state and succumbed to the elements. August nights in West Texas are still dangerously hot. But his family never accepted that theory. They pointed out that Brandon sounded genuinely afraid, not confused. The background voice on the 911 call suggested he wasn't alone. And if he had simply wandered into the brush, why was his body never found during extensive searches? Others speculated about foul play. The stretch of Highway 277 is isolated. Brandon's truck was visible from the road. Someone could have encountered him in his vulnerable state. But there were no witnesses, no suspects, and no forensic evidence linking anyone to his disappearance. The case went cold. For nearly a decade, Brandon Lawson's case remained one of Texas's most baffling unsolved disappearances. His family kept the case alive through social media, podcasts, and a dedicated Facebook page, the Help Find Brandon Lawson group, that drew amateur investigators from around the world. Then, in February 2022, a small private search party investigating Brandon's last known whereabouts made a discovery. In the brush near Highway 277, they found a pile of clothing. Authorities were contacted, and a more thorough search of the area uncovered human remains. The remains were sent to a laboratory for DNA analysis, but the process was agonizingly slow. The bones had been exposed to the harsh Texas elements for nearly a decade. In October 2023, the lab confirmed the remains were male and extracted partial genetic markers. Finally, in 2024, the Texas Ranger assigned to the case called Brandon's family with the news they had been waiting 11 years to hear. The DNA confirmed the remains were Brandon Lawson's. His family held a memorial service in Burleson, Texas in August 2020. After all those years, they could finally bring him home. But the question of how he died and whether anyone else was involved remains officially unanswered. Brandon Lawson drove into the Texas night on August 8, 2013, and never came back. His truck was found on the side of Highway 277. His 911 call captured a man in terror, begging for help, claiming someone was chasing him through the darkness. Was he running from a real threat? Was methamphetamine distorting his reality? Was there someone else on that road that night who has never been identified? The 911 call has been played millions of times online. Every word has been debated, enhanced, and reinterpreted. And still, no one can say for certain what Brandon Lawson experienced in his final moments in the Texas scrubland. His remains were found less than a mile from his truck. He never made it far. Whatever happened, whether he was hunted or lost or consumed by something inside his own mind, it happened fast and it happened in the dark. Brandon Lawson was 26 years old. He was a father, a son, a brother, and the Texas brush kept him for 11 years before giving him back. What do you think happened to Brandon Lawson?